Lucky the sleeper. Lucky. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's doing something else today, but he might call in. Who knows? I wanted to go. Yeah, probably know him. Probably know him. Probably know him. Hola, my good friend. Cinco de Mayo is on Tuesday, and I'd hoped to see you by then. You killed my brother. GTI, high volume, lower price. Lower price is never the best thing, but low volume is a positive. Hey, waiting for the moon. So what I thought, I'm going to go with what I wrote down yesterday. I thought I'd quickly go over what I learned on that interview yesterday. I sure hope I wrote it down. Maybe I didn't. We can do the approximate numbers. But it doesn't look like I wrote. I guess I was too busy to write it down. But anyway, one of the things I learned about CAUD yesterday, let me show you where I got my number from, just so you know it. This is where I got the outstanding share number, OTC markets, and the market cap. But what Brent, and let's see, this market cap's dated December 1. Anyway, what Brent said yesterday is there's a little over 13,000 shares outstanding. And I think he said about 3,400 in the float. Let's just call it 3,000 and 13,000 and realize that we're off by a bit. He said 65% of that is closely held. So let's use 60% of 3. That's 1.8 million shares or more closely held. So it leaves you about 1.2 million in the float of CAUD I'm talking about. But how does that explain? I can't get the hobbler out of the way. How does it explain all this trading and all this volume? I don't think it does. And well, let me show you this again. See where it's yellow here? I think this looks, I don't know. I mean, this is not much of a chart. It's traded all of what, 3 weeks? But you could make an argument of a descending wedge, sort of, and then this is a breakout. But the other thing is it's broken out of a trend line for sure, and some sort of cup handle, it's all whatever pattern you want to see. But to me, this is tired selling. They've run out of selling and the stock's going up. The prices I think it could go to next is this 450 range, 425, 4 to 450. And I don't see any reason why it then couldn't go to 813 and then to 1023. And if it busts through that, this $11 or $12, but this intrigues me. I wish I could draw on this. This intrigues me. That is an enormous gap. to fill. And I'll get ARC on because my rudimentary skills are not really adequate. But that's $24, $25. Anyway, that was one thing I learned yesterday, that the outstanding shares are higher than what OTC Market says, that there's less than 2 million shares in the realistic float, maybe as low as 1 million shares. 1.2 million is what I just calculated here. So that sets up a potential of a huge rally with any news, with any buying. Anyway, that was one of the things I learned. Second thing was interesting to me. Brent seemed a little subdued about some of his answers, and he had mentioned in the beginning that NASDAQ is much more stringent on its requirements, its due diligence, the legal, the compliance, basically. And that was interesting because maybe there is some hope for NASDAQ. I don't particularly think it's a good, it's any better than the rest. But anyway, he may have been, because it's a new company's NASDAQ, new board, he may have had to, constrain himself a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to talk about, I don't want to speak for him. But I thought that was actually a positive, that the NASDAQ might actually have better rules and enforcement than the over-the-counter markets. Call me skeptical, but it's nice to hear. And the other thing I wanted to highlight is more about logic than CAUD. What I heard him say yesterday is he's been looking at several companies that are better than the company he had preliminarily agreed to allow to acquire Logic Show. And he said those companies are in the $500-600 million range. And he said 10% would belong to us. I asked him, could it be 15%? He said, yeah, it could be. And that's the negotiation. To me, if you have one or more buyer, it strengthens your hand to negotiate. So anyway, I just want to reiterate, if we use 550 million, the midpoint of the numbers he gave, and let's not use 15%. Let's use an eighth. So we as shareholders of Logic would we would own an eighth of the new co, which would probably trade on NASDAQ, but maybe New York Stock Exchange. So our eighth, give or take, would be worth $68,750,000. And if you divide that by 147 million shares in the Logic Show, that's 46.76. It's 47 cents a share. So anyway, if they make an announcement, which maybe could happen soon, call it 40 cents a share. But Logic's trading at what? Let me look it up. This is a trade. This is a stock to date, not to bring home to mother at this point. Yeah, the last trade 3 cents. I thought it was 2.5 cents. It was as low as 2 cents today. Anyway, 3 cents. Let's say they make that announcement. Maybe it doesn't go to 40 cents. but it runs up, I don't know, 20, 25, 30. At 30 cents, you make 10 times your money in a trade. Anyway, those are a couple of things I wanted to share. Let me see what some of your comments. The other thing one of you guys said, look at CNLV. I didn't yet. I want to tell you why, and I didn't prepare anything up here, but I want to tell you why I am interested in HNRC. Let me think how I could show that to you right now. I want to do a separate video on it. But one thing that'd be interesting is maybe I can start a list of some of the stocks you want me to look at. I mean, you may not want me to look at, but over the next 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of these stocks are going to go down for tax loss selling reasons. It may be a chance to pick a handful of them, 2 or 3, 4 or 5, and buy some of them at low prices, and then see what happens at the end of January, beginning of February. If you have a January effect, you can get a real snapback rally. What people do is they'll sell, their broker will say, or their tax accountant, sell that for a tax loss, but then they want to be back in it, and they buy back in at the end of, 31 days later. So 2 things happen. The selling disappears, the selling pressure, and some buying pressure comes in, and it could be a nice trade. Hey, Sideshow Bob. I bought this book. Who is this? Shane. I can't believe it, but I bought this book on the repo market, and I opened it. It came wrapped in plastic. It was expensive. It came wrapped in plastic. I opened the plastic last week and say, oh, fine. I start reading it. For my girls. Introduction. My personal brand was built during the most arduous trial of my life. I was forged by fire and made stronger by all the elements that combined during that incredibly difficult time. I'm living proof of the amazing things you can comment. I'm thinking, this does not seem, forged by fire, how to develop an unstoppable personal brand by Myla Grigg. Like, wait a minute. I paid $100 for this book and it's fake? Anyway, I'm negotiating to get the real one here. I want to learn more about the repo market. I just finished this book, which was interesting. History of Corporations. I wouldn't buy it. I don't. It's got, he's a reasonably good writer and thinker, but he's very, I don't know, guys and girls, we cannot accept the mainstream media accounts and narratives of everything. It's not about getting angry at me or Hillary this, Trump that, Biden asleep, Nikki Haley, a woman, and apparently Nikki Haley is a woman of color. It's odd. She doesn't look very colored to me. She looks rather pale, but whatever. My point is, though, what I'm trying to get all of you to think about, and I'm trying to do too, is we have to get out of this system. We have to be independent. We have to make some money and be independent, because the United States is going to go down. I don't know if it's this decade, 2 decades, or tomorrow, but we have to be honest with ourselves. That's how you can take advantage of situations. And woke this, white supremacists that, all the problems in the world are attributable to white, straight men. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. It just doesn't even make sense. Yes, in the past, some horrible things were done by tall white men out of parts of the UK and Deutschland and Holland. But you know what? If you read your history carefully, they did some mean things to other men that happened to be um, looked like them in some ways. Anyway, I don't want to get off too distracted, but this guy is a little bit woke for me, but he's got some good points about corporations. But I'm not emphasizing that you buy that. You're going to get bored with it. I do want to read this repo book, and I just have to get it replaced. I think there is a liquidity problem in the market. I think that's why we're rattling sabers, so that Congress will authorize spending money and we can get liquidity to the banks. You know how important the banks are. We couldn't have a modern society and succeed without the banksters. But that's where we've decided as a society to focus our taxpayer dollars. But yeah, I do think there's liquidity issues. I think it's going to be tough for the markets. I differ from many in that I think that the stock market's going to have a year-end rally, but this isn't to get your hopes up. This is just something to participate in before it all goes down. Yeah, so I'm going to learn a little bit more about those markets, but I do believe there's liquidity issues and the banks are in a lot of trouble. The Fed is in a lot of trouble, but guess what? The United States is too. We have a lot of debt, and I don't get it. Why didn't we put out our debt at 3 and 4% for 30 years? Instead, we're rolling it, and our interest rate that we have to pay is going up. Abu Dhabi pricing oil in something other than dollars is a disaster. And we're not reliable anymore. I mean, whatever you thought about Trump, his blunderbuss and ego and all that, that was one image of America. Prior to that, it was the folks, peace, but you know, that peace prize, Nobel Peace Prize. But that president was the first president that was at war for every single day of 2 terms. First president in history. We bombed the Middle East so much that we ran out of bombs more than once. And this was the Nobel Peace Prize. And now we have somebody who's aging in place. I don't know. It regardless of what you think, the image we're giving to our allies and others is not one of strength. And I think we're all going to pay for it. What I'd like is that if each of us can be our own central bank, can be our own island of financial independence, we can get through this. We're still a great country. We still have, sea to shining sea. We have the best idea of a government in the world. But we're censoring each other. We're limiting because we don't want to face what's coming. I think inside everybody knows there's a reckoning coming. But we're still the best country on earth. So anyway, I want you guys to be independent. Hey, Amby. Yeah, I think that's right. I think Ham's keeping quiet on those. I don't know why I'm raising my voice. My ear is a little not the best, but I'm sorry about raising my voice. I think the investigations, all that Secret Service stuff, he can't talk about. But I wonder, and he hasn't told me anything, hasn't told me a thing. But I wonder if something's going on with Finger. I didn't see any announcement today, so maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, yeah. And that football bet has got to be depressing, but he's not like me. He just keeps going. I bought a few shares of CAUD this morning. Not a huge thing. At 181, I see it's at 173. Thank you, Roger, for your question. Wow, Millennia Bacci. I wonder what they paid you. My guess, not very much compared to what they were earning. Everything is such a scam. Let me read you something that Kohlberg. What was his first name? Justin Kohlberg? No, that's not it. Well, anyway, I can find his first name. I had to read about Zuckerberg. I didn't enjoy that. Kolb's first name, I just can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He retired, and at his retirement speech, he surprised his two other Kravitz and Roberts. He surprised them by saying, I'll just read it's only 2 paragraphs. Kohlberg, the statesman, said at his retirement, 20 years ago, I had a small dream that companies could be bought and investments made in undervalued businesses. This is KKR, where we as financiers would put our money, time, and effort right alongside management. We would do everything in our power to ensure that our investment and theirs turned out well. We would both sides risk a great deal, capital and reputation. I choose to mention this today because all around us there is a breakdown of these values in business and government. It is not merely the difference between insider trading and legitimate arbitrage. It is not just refusing a suitcase of cash. It is not just the overweening, overpowering greed that pervades our business life. It is the fact that we are not willing to sacrifice for the ethics and values we profess. For an ethic is not an ethic, and a value not a value, without some sacrifice to it, something given up, something not taken, something not gained. We do it in exchange for a greater good, for something worth more than just money and power and position. The great paradox of this philosophy is that in the end, it brings one greater gain than any other philosophy. That's what he said. And then he went on. He went on with his speech. He said, "We all must insist on a resurgence of these values, because if we do not, the great luck, hard work, intelligence, and decency that we have all brought to these successful investments will wither and decay. We must all insist on ethical behavior, or we will kill the golden goose." Of course, he's worth several $billions. Easy to say. Yeah, I don't trust Webull. I have a small Webull account uh, just because I just found out I may cancel it. You have to pay for it, but you can get level 2. I want to see how good it is. But I don't trust Webull or Robinhood to have real shares. I think it's pretty clear that they trade in IOUs. Everything in the United States is pork bellies. Wall Street is a concentration of cash and wealth that's so great. Everything is a commodity. They're trying to make all of the doors in the United States for rental properties and homes a huge, giant pork belly market. They do it with oil, the price of oil, price of natural gas, gold, silver, platinum, I think, stocks, bonds for sure. Everything is a pork belly. That's good advice. Put out GTCs. Um, is vocal below a penny? What I'd like to do is make a list of stocks to to maybe accumulate by year end. Vocal's on my, yeah, it's below a penny. That I predicted. I don't know if I said it to you guys, but he's Lynn Partners did this to him, but I think he still can't believe it. And the Kramers were in there too. And it's never ending. They're going to try to seller box Vocal. That's one advantage GTII has over Vocal is there's an enormous, well, relatively, comparatively, Vocal has a large burn rate. So he needs to raise money. The criminals at and behind Lynn Partners, at and behind Power Up Lending and others realize this. So they just keep selling stock that doesn't exist. And it makes it impossible to raise money. But he's fighting. He's got a different strategy. I'm interested in Vocal as a stock we can make money into the upside. Not right away. I don't know. I've got to see if I can talk to Jeremy and see what we could do. That is reserved for the Lord. I am who am. Just don't stray. Will you tell us about Finger? Let's see where it's trading. Let's see where it's trading. I'm hoping Ham calls in because he can't resist it. Finger's trading well, St. Thomas. 437.5. It was as high as 450. I tuned in to ARCA this morning and I saw his chart on Finger. I can't remember if that was a declining wedge. It looked like an upward wedge. I can't remember. So that I didn't like that, but he was pretty positive on Finger. The only thing I can thank St. Thomas is that they filed that registration statement 2 months ago. They obviously had been working with Univest prior to that. It's not like they just met in the elevator. So you assume maybe 90 days, 120 days of effort has gone back and forth with Univest and Finger Motion. Univest was named in the shelf registration. Doesn't mean the Finger has to work with Univest. It could be somebody else. The document, the 300 million, was not good to go because you had to file a separate sub filing to be good to go. The shelf registration was just there so the SEC could look at it, make sure everything's okay. They simultaneously filed a $25 million raise. And I don't know, St. Thomas. We are so used to everything being negative. Everyone 20 years younger than I am, 40 years younger than I am, and those that are 2 years old, they want everything now. No delayed gratification, no waiting. I mean, I remember when I was young, ordering books to read to be delivered, I'd have to wait a month. Now you can get them the next day. Boom, 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 boom. So I know it's frustrating, but 2 months is not a long time to go from filing a shelf registration and then doing something about it. Personally, St. Thomas, I think we're going into the, whatever you want to call it, the lazy days of Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and I don't know where the Chinese New Year comes in. But we're coming into holiday season. So I'd be surprised if anything happens in December. However, the other day on the phone, Ham was so pumped up. I'm reading into it that maybe something's happening because of that shelf registration. What could it be? I have no idea. Brent said yesterday that Finger has an opportunity, in his judgment, to rapidly expand its presence in Southeast Asia outside of China. Well, this is right up the bailiwick of Univest. And remember, Finger purchased the Netflix of Southeast Asia. I forget the name of it, Zhiji or Zhijun, Zhuji. You can look it up in the news, but they have 100 million users. Well, what if there's something going on with that? But at bottom line, St. Thomas, I don't know any material, inside information. I'm not privy to it. And if I did know it, I wouldn't be telling it out over the air until the company had a chance to honor Reg FD, full disclosure to everyone at the same time. This is where NASDAQ, even though yesterday I didn't understand. Well, anyway, I do understand. CEOs can't, particularly when they talk to lawyers and they have boards and they have to go to investment bankers, they're going to believe this is normal. There's nothing normal about this in CAUD. But remember, this same thing, I don't have the chart here, but this same thing happened in Finger twice. So I don't know, St. Thomas. There have been times that I've learned, information that I would consider it. I'm sorry, my computer switched me off to a different page. I really got to get this set up, that's one of my goals by year end, come hook or crook. Anyway, if I were to know, and if I did know anything that I in my judgment is privileged information, I wouldn't share it. I wouldn't tell Lucky about it. CEOs have to follow the rules. The criminals don't. And even when the CEOs look at what the criminals have done, they have to be polite and say, well, I've learned a lot. It's algorithms. What does that mean? What does that mean? Algorithms can do anything they want because algorithms are exempt from the rule of law? You know, Ape Nation, it's not without risk to create infinite liquidity. And you've looked up the definition of infinite. I think you have. There's no amount of stock they can create which is infinite. They can create a large amount of stock, but it's not infinite. And it's not pointless either. But anyway, why is it that all liquidity is downward? It's always downward. All right, David, I'm confused in the past. You stated not to jump around in stocks. No, I'm not trying to jump around, David. I'm trying to tell you, I guess I'm seeing two things, David. I don't think I ever said that. Don't jump around, but maybe I did. I don't know. I don't want to contradict you. But I think when the market tells you the pressure is building, you don't jump. Finger and GTII a year ago, in my opinion, others don't share it, were both showing the stresses and signs of a short squeeze. And then we hopped into COSM. We didn't stick with it. But David, I think Finger and GTII are going to have their runs, but you have to look at what the market's telling you. I eased off on Finger, I think a month ago, 2 months. I can't remember. Time goes by so slowly, but time can do so much. Anyway, 1 or 2 months ago, because the market wasn't feeling like that the buying was there. GTII, similar thing. But David, I'm going to talk about other stocks because they're not the stocks which two of them I've brought up, I guess, maybe three, but many of them have come to me from you all. It's David, you think it's just one stock. I think it's about trying to make money. So I think there's going to be an opportunity. I'll just repeat myself. Most of the stocks that people are showing me, from Vocal to CLNV to COSM to GTII, to a lesser extent Finger. And it's hard to calculate with CAUD because technically, I think from a tax standpoint, our cost basis is zero. But I don't know. It depends on your accountant how they would credit the cost basis. I mean, it's basically trading at 14 cents a share pre-split, pre-breakaway. But I don't know. I'm not an accountant. I think you take all your losses on the logic side, and this is all anyway. But everything, David, is under pressure. So what does that set up? I'm confused. What it sets up is an opportunity to buy stocks on sale at the end of the year. I think only an idiot would say, I just bought Finger and that's what I'm going to hold on to. That doesn't, the two are not contradictory. All right, we're going to hold on to our Finger. We're going to hold on to our GTII. And yesterday I made a list of the 5 my favorite tax buys, December buys. So far, I'm willing to expand the list. But the point is to take advantage of these stocks being on sale. But it's only in the stock market. You know, attention Walmart shoppers, laundry detergent in aisle 12 is 50% off. We scramble to go buy it. TVs in aisle 1 are 70% off. We fight each other. When stocks are down, we go, oh, there's something wrong. I'm not going to buy it. So I don't mean to confuse you, David. But if you're here just to diamond hand stocks and watch them go all the way down and never look at another idea, that's not me. I'm interested in other ideas. David, I gave Finger and GTII 3 or 4 or 5 years of time. I'm still committed to both. I probably should be committed. But there are other stocks out there, David, where you can make money. So here's my idea, David. Just buy GTII. I'm not saying jump out of it. Those are your words. Hang on to GTII. Buy more GTII. Stick with GTII. Don't listen to anything else. GTII is going to have its day. But I just talked about logic. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy it. Logic's trading for 3 pennies. 3 pennies. 3 pennies. You could buy 10,000 shares for the cost of a round trip ticket, in economy to Des Moines, Iowa. $300 to buy 10,000 shares. You buy 100,000 for $3,000. If I'm right about the potential timing that something could happen over the next few weeks, rather than over the next 90 days, 120 days, specifically, David, let's call this I'm confused Corp. So I'm confused Corp is worth $600 million. And it buys the logic shell and lists on the New York Stock Exchange. $600 million at an eighth that comes to logic, David. Confused. That's 75 million. So the I'm Confused Corp buys the Logic shell. I'm Confused Corp is worth 600 million. It starts trading on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. And we collectively, David, if you buy Logic, own, our value is $75 million. What is that per share, David? There's 147 million shares outstanding. That's 51 cents. 51 cents a share. 51 cents a share. Now, Logic right now, David, is trading at 3 cents because of the criminals. 3 cents. Let's say when the news is announced and there's covering of the shorts, it doesn't go to the value of 50 cents. It just goes to 30 cents. 30 cents. And it could happen this month. It might not. It might take 3 months. I mean, this is all speculative. Well, what is that, David? That's 10x on your money. 10 times on your money. So if you started with $300, it's 3,000. If you started with $3,000, it's 30,000. Now, I don't know, David, your situation, but $300 or $3,000 shouldn't require you to jump out of GTII. Shouldn't require that. And I never said that. Jump out of GTII. I'm trying to show you a trade that you could make. You don't have to. You don't have to. I don't care. But what if you did this? What if you just did $300 and you got out for $3,000? With $3,000, you could buy 5,000 or 6,000 shares of GTII, or you could buy a first class ticket to Des Moines, Iowa, return. Anyway, thank you for your question, David. Hey, Keys. I don't know. I forget about what I was saying. There is a big picture. Oh, Nikki is Pakistani. I don't know what she is. I think maybe she's Indian, but I'm so sick of it. Anyway, I don't want to get into it. Hey, BT Walker, I'm rereading 1984. One of the lines that stood out to me is something: no one reads the news. Everyone knows it's garbage anyway. I should reread that. I went to Christopher Hitchens' home twice, maybe three times. I was invited through a friend, and he was gracious. But his bookshelves, he has did have a whole wall or the whole part of the bookshelf devoted to Orwell. And I'd like to reread it. Yeah, she's Indian American, and it's been very difficult for her to get ahead in America, primarily because she's a woman and she's Indian American. It's easy for white males to get ahead, very easy. It's like a ski slope. Once they get going, you can't stop them. Yeah, I think, David, that comes from Ray Cohn. Ray Cohn was an attorney, and I'm trying to remember the famous person he represented. He got in those Robert F. Kennedy hearings. But anyway, Ray Cohn is the one that taught Trump, if someone attacks you, you got to hit back right away. And that's what Trump does. Hey, John Ross. I never remember what I said anyway. But you know what's scary, John, is I wish I could avail myself of all the people I met who are now dead, whose wisdom was so much greater. And it's so frustrating. We only live, I guess our DNA, they figured out, is, I don't know who, some scientist or someone, you know, we could live 120 years if everything went right, but that's where it taps out. But anyway, most of us don't make it anywhere near that. But by the time we learn so much, we die. So frustrating. Trump 2020 needs to be addressed. Well, I know my view on it. If stock certificates can be counterfeited, other things can be too. Yeah, he did. I didn't, when Ham was on here, I didn't hear there would be, that's not how I heard it, but there's no question mark. There's no question mark, Mark. There's no question that he is animated by what's going on with the Secret Service. Anyway, I think he is encouraged, greatly encouraged by the Secret Service. Well, we're only going to be the best country because of you guys, all of you, everybody. If we remember Jimmy Carter, I want a government as good and as honest as the American people. We need that. Well, where do you suggest we invest, Eric? The Southern Don region, certain parts of sub-Saharan Africa, maybe on the Latvian exchange. Where should we invest? I don't know. What I had hoped is that we would have made money in Finger by now and GTII by now, so that I'd be showing you a couple of areas that I feel like I know about, which is how to invest in oil and gas for income and growth, and how to invest in precious metals, and maybe some of the mining and resource companies. But I'd also encourage everyone to invest in what you know, whether it's 1970, 1967 Mustangs, or Andy Warhol, or a string of 3 or 4, 5 coffee shops. But Eric, I do think there's a chance here where, with the efforts of Ham and Busy and Anna and Pedro Philly and that guy Patrick and Junk Savvy and the woman that is a statue. Just so many people working hard that we can break through and money can be made in U.S. markets. I mean, some of these stocks are ridiculously cheap. Do you know, Eric, every day I have a goal of picking up at least 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 of the plastic bags that are blowing out on the streets. People eat, they just drop them. They blow. Anyway, I don't pick up the ones that are wet or have anything that's crummy in them, just the dry bags. And I figured if every day each American picked up 3 or 4 bags, that would be 1 billion bags a day that didn't end up in the sea, didn't end up in the rivers, didn't end up strangling a tortoise or getting stuck in around a deer's head, or trapping a baby's paws in the plastic and they don't know how to get rid of it. It wouldn't go into our food chain. Well, this is CLNV. This is what they're trying to do. Not my little thing. So I love looking at that. And that's a company that deserves to be invested in. I think if you listened to Brent last night, he said this can be a multi-billion-dollar company. Multi-billion. Much like Trade Desk. So I think there's a way to invest. Maybe that's harder to trade. And, Warren Buffett, I listened to him when I was trying to listen to some of what Charlie Munger's bon mots. Warren Buffett said he would change the stock market so that stocks would trade more like houses trade. In other words, you're going to see an investment that you like and hold it long enough that it works out. Anyway, I'm only investing in MMTLP, GTII, and Finger. Well, that's me. That describes my so David, the rest of these ideas, you should ignore. You should just ignore. Ignore the ideas Frank Benedetto puts out there, the ideas, the other stocks that Ham occasionally mentions. Ignore those. Ignore the ideas that Borders puts out. Just ignore everything. You can't buy any MMTLP. I will tell you, David, I'm more and more convinced that you should move your MMTLP to AST, but that's your decision. GTII, you already own it. Might as well just buy more of it. Finger, you already own it. Might as well just buy more of it. That's basically you know about 2 stocks that you can still buy. And I think it's a perfectly acceptable, perfectly logical and reasonable investment strategy to know 2 stocks cold and continue to own those 2 stocks. You know everything about them. That gives you an advantage. When they pull back, it's a good time to buy. So I think it's totally reasonable. I think it's but anyway, that's my portfolio. Hey, Mark. Well, Eric, I can't blame you for that. I was thinking about that the other day. These are not stocks that I would recommend if I were sitting with my book of clients like I used to have. These are not stocks that I'd be recommending. I'd be recommending, now they'd all be wealthy, but I'd be recommending 5 or 10% of monies be put into some form of precious metals. And I'd be looking at perhaps, although it's really risky, there's nothing safe. There's nothing safe other than what you know. Other than what you know, it's very hard right now to project forward where you're going to be safe with money. I think banks are going to be in trouble. Regional banks are going to be in trouble. I think credit unions are reasonably safer than the other banks. Brokerage firms are going to be very dangerous. So I think the U.S. markets are corrupt. One way you could benefit from the markets, just buy ETFs, buy managed money, put your money with the criminals, and you'll make 8% while they make 40, 50%, but at least you make something. I don't know where you're going to put your money. You're out of the U.S. markets. I guess you might go to the Russian bourse or which I would, if I knew how to do it, I would consider that. Or maybe one of the Middle Eastern exchanges, the Indian exchange, China's exchange. I don't know. But there's no question the United States markets are massively corrupted. As an outsider, I see Nikki Haley as a strong and smart politician, well balanced, unlike Trump. Well, I don't particularly see her that way. I think she's in the recent situations, she's proven herself to be a warmonger, I think. And I want us out of all these endless wars. I'm tired of it. I think Trump is far more balanced if you get to know him. I mean, if you read the mainstream media or you listen to one exaggerated snippet of his speech, you have to listen to the whole speech. He's repetitive. He's a marketer. He knows you've got to say things 2 or 3 times. You've got to keep the message simple. And he does it over and over and over again. But Donald Trump did not get us in any wars. That's balanced, very well balanced. He didn't get us in any wars. The economy was strong. That's balanced. He helped raise the net worth of all Americans. That's balanced. But I don't see Nikki Haley as smart. I don't see that, and I don't think she's strong. But that, we obviously would vote differently. I don't think Trump's perfect, by the way, at all. So I tend to, whatever is causing you to think he's unbalanced, that anger and the fighting back and the those aren't necessarily positive qualities. But he's truthful, I think. Now you're going to say, "Oh no, he isn't," but you don't listen to. Respectfully, maybe you do, but if you listen, he can say a whole in one sentence. The next sentence can contradict it. But if the mainstream media wants to focus on that first bit, then you've got your story. But Nikki Haley is, if she's not a neocon, she's an appeaser for the neocons, and I don't like that. Peace. Oh, somebody agrees with me. The only winning move is not to play. Okay, so Eric, your strategy then, I guess, is to keep your money in cash or bonds, maybe. Well, that though cash might maintain its value for you. I hope it does. I think the problem is we're playing a lot of these stocks are OTC stocks. That's why Ham focuses on two, Finger and GTII. We know who the short is. I think CAUD, and I don't buy it. I'm not telling you to buy it. CAUD right in front of us. That's not a long history. And there's only 1 million shares in the float. So when that snaps back, that's going to be huge. I gave you the reason on logic. And I'll tell you before I'm done here why I think HNRC makes sense. Let's look at some of these prices. Finger is 436, 320,000. That's relatively low volume, solid volume. So it's in the green. That's a positive. GTII, I didn't look at it earlier. 50 cents, 0.5089. Similar volume, 379,000 shares. That's interesting in that it's holding at 50 cents. I'd love to hear what ARCA says on that one, or Avid Trader. MMAT 7.3. Whoever was, I think it was this David. I'm confused. Look at MMAT. It's less than 7.5 cents. If you believe in the stock, I'm worried about the financing having just completely made it impossible for it to recover. But if you believe in the stock, it's trading at 52-week lows. It's a chance to buy it. And by the way, I'm confused. My whole point is to have a trade, like a January effect trade. But you don't have to do it. Just stick with the two stocks, GTII and Finger. Ham is doing the heavy work, the studying of the shorts. You're going to know it. We have an advantage in those two stocks. It's perfectly makes sense. Okay, let me see what else is here. Oh, GDC, that's one everybody asked about. That's 286. It's out of context for me. Logic is 0.0275. Vocal, a penny. Vocal is a penny. There's Dish. I don't know much about that one. And CAUD is 173. I bought stock at 181 this morning. So that's 1.48 million. So the entire float traded today. Trump is the coming of dictatorship in America? I don't know. I think he has his own rationale for the last election. I saw him get in the helicopter and fly away. That's not much of a dictator. But anyway, anything CNN says, I'm going to believe it. So if they've put their analysis in on it, Trump is the coming of dictatorship, we better not have Trump. We better not have him. I'd rather have a doddering old man that can't even walk off stage without directions from Dr. Jill, PhD in education. He blocked you. See, I don't know what blue is. Go blue. I don't know football very well, but I think he's probably down a bit, Pete, because FSU didn't make it to the finals or something. There. I agree with you. I am what I am. I like that. Yeah, let him be. You're pretty wise, ocean sailing. You said this would be the last of it. Let Josie Wales be. Can they caveat emptor GTI? Look, if GTII is going to go to the South Korean exchange, it's going to be a process. We'll have lawyers. I suppose anything's possible, but no, I mean, I don't know. Kipling, it's just trying to do something to cause a balancing of the books, to cause settling the trades. Now, there's a whole theory out there that pretty much goes to one gentleman, but others, I guess, too, that says when you see what's an example? Let's look up. Let's look up. I've already forgotten and the website's not opening. Oh. I can't find it. Sorry, I can't find. That's my brain. Anyway, there you go to the. Here I can. That I remember. I remember the website now. There it is. So if we put in GTII, it shows. Wow. Let's do finger. Doesn't seem there's a lot of shorting going on in GTII, which I'd take as a good sign. Let's look. What's one to use? I want to use one that has. Wow, the numbers have changed. What's another one? CNLV. No information. That's because it's on the NASDAQ. Vocal. It's amazing. The short report doesn't go as high as it used to. But anyway, looking at Vocal, if you add up for the last 30 days, I'd say 4 or 5 million shares have been shorted in Vocal over the last 30 or 20 trading days. There's an argument that these numbers that FINRA reports do not include the during the day covering of those same trades. Well, then why do they publish this? Why not net it out? Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know. I would be pissed off. I know you're on his side. I'll tell him. I don't, you know what? I don't think he even thinks about it once he blocks. To me, I'd be thinking about it. I'd be thinking about it for days. I should have done it a different way. You know, but Ham is just, he moves on, you know. I'll see what I can, I'll try to get you back unblocked. There, I agree. What if your name was WTF? Because that's almost my name. You'd go through life. Well, the problem with MMAT is the board and the lawyers and listening to the investment bankers. And I'm afraid sorry, I can't bring you up, Pete. It's not letting me click there. But it is the toxic note. That's the problem. I agree with that. I think the break might be more about wow. This is the problem. People, when you break it into its pieces, oh, we just gave it to institutional investors. What does that mean? They didn't. It's a front for the criminals. But how do you prove that? How do you prove that? So everything is glorious, institutional. The company has great technologies, great future, but it should be crushed because institutions took the placement, but then somebody destroys it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to argue that institutions are buying and then they don't defend the price. It doesn't make any sense. This could be very spiny, pretty sharp guy. I'm not sure what Palast is, but I'm not gonna. I'm not. Let me just get that off. That brings up a lot of. It's just not spelled correctly, so I don't know, and I'm not a good speller. I'm not going to give my view on that. How do I do that? Let me. Oh yeah. Hey boy. Now it's freezing. Um, what words? Oh well, I don't know what words. Hi, Jennifer. I'm trying not to be annoyed. Well, 11 different stocks you can handle. You know, you can have more, but you can have stocks you trade, stocks you buy for the long term, and believe it or not, the over-the-counter market can come back to life. Small caps can come back to life. There needs to be enforcement of the rules, but that won't be that hard. I mean, if they just brought back the uptick rule, they brought back the know your customer rule. I mean, it still is there, but for these pipes that just send millions of shares orders, there's no way the market maker knows who's doing that. Just enforce the locate rule. It's right here. SEC has it in Savvy. Well, that's right. You're getting an education. No, that's not true. But I mean, if you want to believe it, it's easier just to believe what you're told. But look at MMTLP. Look what, anyway, Korean Yun, if you don't understand, I don't know how to draw this, but depository trust is where the shares are held in street name and in your name through a transfer agent. But you put up cash, the broker dealer sends your cash to the market maker, which then goes to the prime broker, and all the market maker / prime broker gives back to the broker dealer is a fail to deliver. And then the broker dealer is telling you that your IOU that they put in your account, they're saying this, you're still beneficial owners of the shares and you still have all the benefits of being shareholders. Your shares are indeed true and real. Well, then why did they didn't settle the trade? What's in your account is an IOU. And yes, the broker dealer has to treat those shares with all those rights there. Anyway, Korean Yun, your life will be a lot easier if you just believe what they tell you. It'd be a lot easier. But eventually there's going to be a reckoning. And you don't, it's like MMTLP. I don't know if you own MMTLP. MMTLP doesn't exist. It's simply a placeholder. It's like saying, I owe you $20 and you hand it to your friend. That's all it is. It's not $20. I don't know. I don't want to go through the whole, but it makes me depressed. It means that everything I've tried to explain, Ham has explained, goes nowhere. Um, um, if we all asked for our shares to be delivered to us of GTII, we would know the answer, but we'd miss out on the squeeze. Maybe at this point, it's just better if all of us asked for our shares in our name all at once, and we damned the idea that there was ever going to be a squeeze, that we're going to participate in a squeeze. We could prove it once and for all. Yeah, I'm just asking. I maybe I took it out of context. I'm not as keen in the short. Let me say it differently. In December, it is possible Logic and CAUD will go up. I gave my reasons already. Might be January, February, March. I think in December, GTII could go lower and Finger could be under pressure. Although I've told you, I believe Finger, there's something pending, which I thought was going to take a while longer. In my heart, I still think it'll be next year because of the holidays. It feels like maybe something's happening now for Finger. If Finger goes, GTII goes. And whales are in on GTII. And the thing is, selling GTII now makes no sense. Buying it does. Anytime a stock is at any price, 50 cents, $1, $5, it can go down. So you buy it here, you can know it's going to go down. But the risk is 50 cents and the upside is enormous. Same, but GoLogic, I think GoLogic is so cheap. I wish I had money to buy that one. GoLogic easily fits the parameters of a candidate to be bought at the end of the year. Let's see where it's trading. $0.37 to buy, 26 cents to sell. There's no volume in it. If you can buy it at 25 cents, 30 cents, 37 cents between now and December 31, that stock has all the potential in the world of going to $10 once they do everything they do. But if it just went to $5, what an amazing return. So these are logical trading questions. Now, going back to your question, I thought you were asking me about jumping out of a stock. If your question was more narrow, have I given up on GTII or have I given up on Finger? No. I'm not saying that the source of funds should be those stocks. I just really see, GoLogic is the same basic story as Logic was, but I think it's probably next quarter. I thought Logic was going to be delayed, but I think, look, I don't know for sure. But what if Logic announced that it was the shell, that it is being bought by Chevron? I'm trying to pick a name that's absurd. Or it's being bought by, I I can't think of a private company. What's that engineering firm that's private? Begins with a B. Anyway, what if a $700 million company announces we're buying the shell? Logic's going to go up. And what if that happens now? It was supposed to. It was supposed to happen simultaneously with the DSPAC. So it could. And CAUD we've talked about. I personally think they're going to announce management, their vision, and it's my speculation. You heard me ask, I got nowhere with it. I wonder if maybe a Univest or another fund group could make Logic go up. You got 1 million shares in the float, and you've got all this selling downward. Anyway, lead a horse and all that. I left GTII once they lied about 1-800 law firm. Go XRP. All right. So XRP is one of the stocks, one of the trades you want to focus on. XRP. That's quite a statement that they lied about 1-800 law firm. I don't know. You must know something I don't know. The lie went on for a year, if it was a lie. As I understand it, the attorneys backed out, but I don't know the reason. If you want to call it a lie, lawyers, liars, maybe they're the same thing. There you go. I love seeing all this trouble, all this malarkey, as the president would call it, that the broker dealers are giving you. They don't have the stock. They don't have it. No. The answer is no. Otherwise, we won't do it. But no. South Korea ban on shorts lasts until June of next year. South Korea has not agreed to accept GTII. GTII has not decided that they would do it. There's a lot of things to be done before this will happen. Theoretically, the system can do almost anything. The regulators and the government can act to protect the banksters. But there's no, the U3 halt and MMTLP, we have to go back through that. MMTLP was created as a placeholder for the oil and gas assets of Torchlight Shell. MMAT, a booming private company, bought the Torchlight Shell. That's what they wanted, the Torchlight listing. They didn't want an oil and gas new field discovery in Texas. So they put that in a separate distribution to shareholders, and they called it Metamaterial. I can't remember, Metamaterial Limited Partner Trust or something, MMTLP. Metamaterial, I can't remember exactly what they called it. Well, the shorts, the criminals who are not using algorithms and then settling up every day. I disagree on that. But if that's what people want to believe, I'm tired of convincing them otherwise. But they counterfeited shares in Torchlight, destroying Torchlight. Well, Torchlight's raison d'etre was the Oro Grande. Look what's happening to the Oro Grande now. Were the shorts correct? No, they were just criminals. They weren't correct. The project was good. It's the same management team. They just were destroying the company under the gaze, the benevolent gaze of Gary Gensler and whoever was behind him. So the shorts sold the loving manure out of Torchlight shares, creating fictitious shares, creating non-existent shares, counterfeiting shares, creating IOUs. MMAT came in and bought Torchlight Shell, and the system just moved those shorts, those counterfeits, those IOUs over to MMAT. And the short said, hey, we can deal with this. We don't have to do anything. And then they started pounding MMAT because they changed the name from Torchlight to Metamaterials. They changed the symbol to MMAT. They changed the CUSIP, but the criminals kept selling counterfeit shares. They kept the mimeograph sheets running, and it's and people out there will tell you it's algorithms, and those numbers don't add up. They don't count the covering. And if it's an offshore sale, it's just delivery. Whatever. I'm tired of arguing about that. But you can see what happened. MMTLP did not want to manage an oil field. So they distributed, almost by accident, a special dividend of the oil and gas property, separating it from the day-to-day management of MMAT, moving it off of the responsibility of management and the board of directors, putting it into shareholders' accounts, but it didn't trade. I don't know, because I wasn't there, if the idea was that that's going to be a tax loss write-off, or that's going to be a private company, or that's just going to be an asset that sits there forever, or someday we'll float it. I don't know what the thinking was. They removed it from the balance sheet and the cap table and the responsibility of MMAT. They put it in accounts. Nothing trading. Well, guess what? The criminals who had destroyed Torchlight were destroying MMAT. Oh no, it's just algorithms, and it doesn't count when it settles back up. That is a lie that some people choose to believe. So, what did the criminals do? They were getting pressure from Wall Street. Hey, this is Marge calling from Fidelity. Yeah, the thing is, you told us you were going to settle that trade 6 months ago, but we have to give a dividend to our clients. So where are those shares? We're asking for delivery. If we don't get delivery, we're going to have to buy you in. And the criminal said, oh, well, we'll make sure we deliver the dividend. Don't worry, we're good for it. In fact, the dividend, that distribution is going to come through us. It's just going to take us, a couple of months. Don't worry about it. So what did the criminals do? They defrauded Wall Street. They purloined personal data. And apparently you only have to get one share trading in as an ADR here, and then you can start flooding the market with MMTLP shares that don't exist. But as they were destroying that, they're hoping that the value disappears, that any kind of obligation they have, whether it's in dollar terms or the company just goes bankrupt, the whole thing goes away. So we know, you don't want to believe it, it's okay. We know that somewhere between 500 million and 1 billion shares of MMTLP are sitting in people's accounts that don't exist. So it makes a lie of the whole argument that these are just algorithms trading back and forth. Anyway, what GTII is trying to do is cause a settlement. It was working a year ago, and as somebody correctly points out, it is my opinion, whether it was just because they were getting paid by the company, they saw a group of investors, they jumped in front and said, hey, me, mine, mine, mine. They caused a run over to COSM. Well, maybe they're just didn't know what they were talking about. Now they've learned what goes on. Well, what it did is the reckoning didn't happen a year ago. Well, that's that. Now we're trying this special dividend. Kipling-y. I'll tell you what. I will put my major pressure on GTII to stop doing anything. Stop trying anything. Just stop trying, because there's always going to be a U3. This is your question. The U3 halt. Couldn't the system halt the trade? Couldn't the system do something to prevent GTII from leaving the country or having a squeeze before it goes? The answer is no. But the answer also is they can break the rules. They have Congress, they have the press, they have the regulators. They can break the rules. So if we want to examine everything that can go wrong, and you want me to dismiss every possible douche-esh machina, if I pronounce that correctly, I could, but no, I think Kipling, what will happen is exactly what Ham said. I've studied it. I've studied his business plan. I've tried to get people to make introductions. I've tried to move it forward. When a company like GTII signs the form, whatever the number is, 24 or 25, they delist from the United States. Essentially, they go private. Now, if they were simply to go private, I don't think that would solve anything, because the criminals would sit on their large derrieres and do nothing, like with Dole Foods. But if the company delists, signing that form, 10 days, those shares in street name, those shares in the name of Lucky, those shares in the name of Kitties Don't Die, all of those shares have to be delivered to the company by the DTC and the transfer agent and the broker dealers, because the company is shutting down. Like I say, if you look up Dole Foods, you can Google it. When they went private, they were bought into a private company. They went through the legal system. Eventually, the judge said, hey, there's 3 or 4 million extra shares here, whatever it was. Well, that would be, if you stopped right there, that would be what would happen. If you just signed the Form 25, you went private, the criminals would just sit on their hands, do nothing. It'd go through the legal system. It'd be years later, and they'd have to write a check for 10, 20, 30 million dollars off of 51 cents or whatever the price is trading. And they continue their crimes. There's one guy in Finger who apparently made $400 million shorting that stock. This is what I've heard. I can't prove that. I don't know the guy's name, so I can't defame somebody. I don't even know who it is. But this is the kind of money that can be made. Ham had a friend who slept on people's couches, and I've been there in my life. Owed Ham 25 grand. He thought he'd never see him again. He knocks on his door, and he's all dressed arrogantly and has a black card and pays him back. And Ham said, what have you been doing? He'd been gone like 4 years. He said, I shorted a silver company, counterfeited. He didn't use that word, but I destroyed the entire market cap of a silver company. It was either 200 million or 400 million dollars. And he took it to his side. And the company went essentially bankrupt, got wiped out. He pays no taxes. The SEC caught him. I don't remember the specific details, but they fined him something like $2 million and banned him from the industry. But he kept his 400 million. So yeah, it's too hot. It's overheating. Let me see. I'm going to see if I can sign in here. I don't know if anybody can hear me. Let's see if this works. Guess it's not going to work. I don't know what to do.